If you've just opened up QuickBooks Online for the first time, or you've been using it for years and you aren't sure you're doing it properly, this video is for you. I'll walk you through a complete 7-step guide to bookkeeping in QuickBooks Online, from setting up your company to producing reports that you can actually trust. Hi, I'm James, you're watching Accounting Stuff, and I've partnered with Intuit to create this complete guide to bookkeeping in QuickBooks Online. To keep things practical, we'll run a fictional business through all 7 steps, so you can see exactly how everything fits together. And along the way, I'll show you where QuickBooks' new automations can speed things up and where your judgment still matters. Let's begin. To get started in QuickBooks Online, you'll first need an account. If you click my partner link in the description, you'll see the current plans and offers available. At the time of recording, there are 4 main plans to choose from: Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, and Advanced. I won't spend too long on pricing because offers can change, but right now you can get 50% off for 3 months or choose a 30-day free trial. If you're already committed to QuickBooks, the discounted option can work out cheaper over the first few months. Onto the plans. Simple Start is the entry-level option. It's designed for freelancers and solo operators who only need the core bookkeeping features. Essentials expands on this with 3 users and additional tools for managing service-based businesses and multiple currencies. Plus gives you room to grow with 5 users, budgeting, project tracking, inventory tracking, and more AI tools that we'll see throughout this video. And Advanced is designed for larger businesses that need more users, tighter controls, and more advanced management reporting. For today's walkthrough, I'm going to choose Plus. Payroll is available as an optional add-on. I've covered that in detail in another video, which I'll link in the description. So we'll continue without payroll for now. From there, QuickBooks takes us to the checkout page where we can enter our email address, password, and phone number to begin setting up our account. With that out of the way, let's kick things off with step 1. How do you set up your business in QuickBooks Online? Once you've entered your payment details, you'll land on the setup wizard. The questions may vary, but the goal is always the same. QuickBooks wants to learn more about your business so it can tailor the experience to you. Let's get started. First, QuickBooks asks you for your business name. For this tutorial, we'll create a small marketing and creative agency called Pallet Town Creative Co. Next, it asks what you were using before: spreadsheets, another accounting tool, or nothing at all. This helps QuickBooks work out whether there's any existing data to import. Then it asks for your website. This is optional, but if you provide one, QuickBooks can use it to fill in some of the setup details automatically. We'll skip that and enter everything manually. On the next screen, we enter our business details, industry, business type, and annual revenue. QuickBooks uses these to tailor the setup and recommendations. Then it asks you about your role and team size. I'm the owner, and for now, it's just me. QuickBooks will also offer a free setup call with a real expert, which I'd encourage you to make use of, but that's also what this video is for. So let's keep moving. When you hit this screen, you'll need to pick something. We'll work through the remaining prompts fairly quickly. Most of them are optional, and you can always update the information later. The important thing is getting the company file created so we can start bookkeeping. And we are in. Welcome to QuickBooks Online. This is the dashboard. It's the screen you'll land on whenever you log into QuickBooks. On the left, you'll find the main navigation bar. Up here, we have the Create button, which is where you can create new transactions like invoices, expenses, and bills. Below that, you'll see app shortcuts for accounting, expenses, and sales. These are the main areas we'll be using throughout this tutorial. If you can't see the app you need, click Customize, and you can add more to this bar. At the top of the screen, there's the Smart Search bar. You can use this to find transactions, customers, suppliers, reference numbers, all the good stuff. But Here's the interesting part. You can also type in a question. Watch. If I type, "Why did my expenses go up last month?" QuickBooks doesn't just search for that text. It actually tries to answer the question through Intuit Intelligence. That's one of the AI tools I mentioned earlier, and we'll see more of it throughout the video. Just below that is the app Carousel, which gives you quick access to the different areas of QuickBooks. Now, check out these widgets. We've got summaries of our bank accounts, profit and loss, and invoices. They're all showing sample data right now. That's just to give you a preview of what these babies can do once real data starts flowing in. You can toggle that off whenever you're ready. Then in the top right, you'll find a few important menus, including Help and Settings. If we click the Settings gear icon and go to Account and Settings, this is where you can add your logo and update any of the information entered during the setup wizard. That's enough of the dashboard. For now, there's no need to memorize every menu. We'll return back to each area as we work through this tutorial. Now that our company file is set up, we're ready for step 2. How do you connect your bank account in QuickBooks Online? This is a big one. Once your bank's connected, QuickBooks can pull in transactions automatically, so you don't need to enter every sale and expense by hand. It's also where we'll start to see the automations really kick in. To get there, search for bank transactions using the Smart Search bar or head to Accounting, then Bank Transactions. From here, you can connect your bank account or credit card to pull in transactions automatically, or upload them manually. I'll show you both ways. First, let's look at the automatic connection. In a real business, this is usually the easiest option. Search for your bank, select it from the list, and QuickBooks will take you through a secure sign-in process. This is a demo, so I'm not going to do that for real, but once connected, QuickBooks shows you every account it found at your bank and lets you choose which ones to bring in. Checking accounts, savings, or credit cards. You don't have to connect everything, just the accounts that belong in this QuickBooks file. You can also choose how far back to import transactions, which is useful if you want to include a few months of history rather than starting from today. Once everything looks right, click Connect and done. From then on, QuickBooks brings in transactions automatically through the bank feed. Now let's upload our bank transactions to QuickBooks Online manually. Start by clicking Upload Transactions here. This opens the import screen where you can bring in a file from your bank. You can drag and drop your transactions here or upload them from your device. QuickBooks accepts a range of file types. For this tutorial, I'm using a CSV since it gives us a clean set of transactions to work with. Once it's uploaded, QuickBooks asks which account these transactions belong to. Since this is our first upload, we don't have an account set up yet, so let's add a new one. We'll call it Checking Account, set the type to Bank, and the detail type to Checking. Next, QuickBooks asks for an opening balance. I'm going to set this at 0 and date it April 1st, because the first transaction in our file is the owner contributing money to the business. If I were to enter an opening balance as well, I'd double count that starting cash. Save and continue. QuickBooks now asks how the file is formatted. The first row in our file is a header, so I'll leave that as yes. It also asks how many columns show amounts. Our file uses 2, one for credits and one for debits. So we'll choose 2 columns. Most of the remaining fields are detected automatically, but it's worth checking the date format before continuing. QuickBooks then gives us a preview of the transactions and asks whether to keep the original values or reverse them. Ours look correct, so we'll keep the original values. I'll select all 78 transactions and continue. QuickBooks confirms the number of transactions and the fields we've chosen. Everything looks correct, so I'll click yes. And the transaction is complete. But this message is important. Transactions only show up in your books after you review and accept them. So how do you categorize bank transactions in QuickBooks Online? Now we're in the bank feed. This is where our imported transactions are sitting, waiting to be reviewed. At the top, we can see the account we just created, and QuickBooks shows we've got 78 pending transactions. We need to review, categorize, and post each one. Whenever a bank transaction comes in, QuickBooks needs to know whether it's something new or whether it matches a transaction that's already recorded in your books. Use match if you've already entered the invoice, bill, expense, or payment in QuickBooks. This links the bank transaction to the existing record so it isn't counted twice. Use categorize if the transaction hasn't been recorded yet. This creates a brand new entry in your books. All of these transactions are new, so we'll be categorizing them. That might sound like a lot of work, but QuickBooks is going to help us out. If I open this payment to Sally Chen, QuickBooks analyzes the bank description and amount, then suggests that it's probably a payroll expense. Over here, we can see its suggestion: payroll expenses, salary, and wages. It's also recognized Sally Chen as a new name, so we can add her to the vendor list and post the transaction. Note that in real business, payroll might be handled through QuickBooks Workforce or another payroll system. But for this demo file, we're keeping this simple and categorizing this bank payment to salaries and wages. Of course, QuickBooks won't get everything right the first time. Here's a good example. This transaction just says online in the bank feed, so QuickBooks doesn't have much to work with. If we open it up, the full bank description says online bill, pay Jess Maple. That tells us it's probably a payment to Jess Maple, but QuickBooks hasn't confidently identified the vendor or category. So we'll handle this one manually. I'll add Jess Maple as the vendor, then choose the appropriate expense account. The memo already includes the original bank description, which is useful, so we'll leave that there. You'll also notice this Files option. This lets you attach supporting documents like receipts, invoices, or contracts. That's a good habit to get into because it creates a clear audit trail for each transaction. Once everything looks right, I'll post it. And that's the key idea with bank feeds. QuickBooks can speed things up, but you still need to review the details. The more information you give QuickBooks, vendors, categories, repeated transactions, the better its suggestions should become over time. Right, give me a minute while I categorize these remaining transactions. We won't do all 78 on camera, but you get the idea. Confirm what QuickBooks gets right, correct what it doesn't, and the process becomes faster as you go. And now we're all caught up. That took me about half an hour. Our bank feed is no longer just a list of imported transactions, it's been turned into proper bookkeeping records. That means QuickBooks can now start using this information to build useful reports, like the profit and loss. But we'll get to that in step 7. Step 3. How do you record sales in QuickBooks Online? There are two main situations to think about. Sometimes a customer's already paid you and that payment shows up in your bank feed, like we saw a moment ago. In that case, you just categorize or match the bank transaction the way we already covered. Other times, you need to bill the customer first and collect that money later. That's what an invoice is for. So let's create one. Head to the Create button, then choose Invoice from the Customers column. You can add a new customer or select an existing one from the drop-down. This invoice is for the Vermilion Bike Store. Next, we'll enter the invoice details. The invoice number is pre-filled, so I won't touch that. I'll set the terms to net 30 and the invoice date to June 30th. QuickBooks automatically works out the due date from there. Next, we'll add the product or service. For this example, I'll choose a brand strategy package and add a short description. The quantity is 1. The rate is $2,400, giving us a total invoice amount of $2,400. You'll also see an option to set up sales tax. If your business needs to charge it, QuickBooks can help calculate the tax based on what you sell and where the sale takes place. For this demo, I'm going to leave it blank. Now, how do we want the customer to pay? Down here, we can add payment instructions or turn on online payments, allowing the customer to pay directly from the invoice using the payment methods available in your account. We'll keep things simple and add our own payment instructions. Once everything looks right, click PDF View to preview exactly what the customer will see. Then click Save and Send. Before it goes out, QuickBooks lets you customize the email that accompanies the invoice. Once you're happy with it, click Send Invoice. Now, if we head to Sales, then Overview, we can see the invoice sitting here for $2,400. This is our accounts receivable, money we're owed but haven't collected yet. If we ever need to follow it up, QuickBooks can help with that too. Click the drop-down, choose Send Reminder, and QuickBooks will use AI to draft a very polite payment reminder. You can change the tone, rewrite it, or send it as is. Chasing money is never fun, and this automation can take the edge off it. One more thing worth mentioning, this invoice isn't just sitting here. The moment we created it, it started feeding into our financial reports, including the balance sheet, which we'll get into soon. Step 4. How do you record expenses in QuickBooks Online? Just like recording sales, there are two main situations to think about. Sometimes you've already paid for something and that payment appears in your bank feed. In that case, you categorize or match the transaction, just as we covered earlier. Other times, a supplier sends you an invoice first and you pay it later. In QuickBooks, that's recorded as a bill. Let's say we've received this $1,200 invoice from Brock Stone for freelance video editing services. Let's enter it into QuickBooks. Head to the Create button. You'll notice two options here, Expense and Bill. I cover the differences in detail in another video called How to Add and Pay Bills in QuickBooks Online, which I'll link in the description. But essentially, an expense records something you've already paid for, and a bill records something you owe but haven't paid yet. We haven't paid Brock Stone yet, so we'll choose Bill. Before we enter anything, notice this panel on the left. If you've received the supplier invoice as a PDF or image, you can select the file or simply drag and drop it into QuickBooks. You can also capture it using the mobile app. QuickBooks uses AI to read the document and fill in many of the bill details automatically. It's identified Brock Stone as the vendor along with the invoice number, payment terms, dates, description, and amount. It's also suggested an expense category and attached the original invoice as supporting documentation. That can save you a lot of time, but as always, you still need to review everything before saving. In this case, the details look correct and I'm happy with the categorization, so I'll click Save. QuickBooks has now recorded the expense even though we haven't paid it yet. The $1,200 balance sits in accounts payable as money the business owes to suppliers. If we head to the expenses overview, we can already see the unpaid bill reflected in the bills funnel. And if we click here, there it is. Brock Stone, $1,200 due July 30th. So how do we pay it? There are two options. The first is to schedule the payment directly through QuickBooks using Bill Pay, which is available as an optional add-on. I have a video covering that too, which I'll also link in the description. Alternatively, you can pay the supplier through your normal bank account, credit card, or preferred payment method. When that payment later appears in the bank feed, don't categorize it as a new expense. No, match it to the existing bill instead. That clears the accounts payable balance and prevents the expense from being recorded twice. And that's exactly what I'll show you in the next step. Step 5. How do you reconcile a bank account in QuickBooks Online? Everything we've done so far has been about getting data into QuickBooks. But reconciliation is different. This is where we check that the bank records in QuickBooks agree with the real bank statement. To get started, head to Accounting, then choose Reconcile. First, check the account you want to reconcile. For us, that's the checking account. Now, there's a couple of ways to enter the statement details. You can type in the ending balance and date manually, or upload the statement and let QuickBooks extract them using AI. I'll drag and drop our statement here. And there it is. QuickBooks has identified an ending balance of $29,044.25 as of June 30th. It asks us to verify those details before moving on, which is absolutely something you should do rather than accepting them blindly. In this case, they agree with the real bank statement, so we're good. Click Start Reconciling, and here's our reconciliation summary. At the top, we can see the beginning balance, total payments, total deposits, and ending balance, comparing the figures on the bank statement with our records in QuickBooks. As you can see, there's a problem. A $401 difference between what the bank statement says and what QuickBooks has recorded. So let's scroll down and find out what the problem is. Most of these transactions have already been cleared. The bold lines show what appears on the bank statement, while the lines underneath show the corresponding amounts in QuickBooks. But if we head to the bottom of page 2, we can see 3 transactions that have been flagged for review. These are the culprits. If we click on them, QuickBooks explains what the problem is. These were found on the bank statement, but they're still sitting as pending transactions in QuickBooks, waiting to be processed. Let's click Go to Pending Transactions and sort them out. That takes us back to the bank feed where we have 3 pending transactions to review. First, we've received $1,850 from Indigo Plateau Events. This receipt hasn't been recorded yet, so QuickBooks suggests categorizing it as a sale. It has also recognized Indigo Plateau Events LLC, which is already in our customer list. That's a straightforward categorize and post. Next, we have $1,200 paid to Brock Stone. Remember this one? It's the payment for the bill we created back in step 4. QuickBooks has found the existing bill and suggested a match, so we'll click Match. That links the payment to the bill, marks it as paid, and clears the accounts payable balance without recording the expense twice. Finally, we have $249 paid to Staples. It's the same idea. QuickBooks has found an expense that's already been recorded in the books and offers to match the payment to it. I'll review the details and click Match. With all 3 transactions processed, we can return to the reconciliation, and that $401 difference should now read $0. Once the difference reaches 0, we can finish the reconciliation and mark the checking account as reconciled through to June 30th. Reconciliation didn't just confirm our bank balance, it exposed 3 unfinished transactions that might otherwise have slipped through the cracks. Step 6. How do you review your bookkeeping in QuickBooks Online? By this point, we've categorized our bank transactions, recorded our invoices and bills, and reconciled the bank account. But that doesn't guarantee that everything's perfect. A transaction could still be miscategorized, an invoice might need chasing, or a bill could be approaching its due date. Review is the final check before you trust what the numbers are telling you. Let's run through it. First, let's check for any unfinished transactions on the bank transactions page. Our pending tab is empty and QuickBooks says we're all caught up. Great. That means there's nothing still waiting to be categorized or matched. Next, let's review the money customers owe us. Head to Sales, then open the Sales Overview. In the sales funnel at the top, we can see that customers currently owe us $2,400. Clicking that balance takes us to the invoice we created for Vermilion Bike Store back in step 3. It isn't overdue yet, so there's nothing we need to fix right now. And a quick look at the orange section of the funnel confirms that we don't have any overdue invoices. But if one did become overdue, this is where we'd catch it and follow it up with the customer. Now let's check the money we owe suppliers. Head to Expenses and Bills, then open the Expenses Overview. Remember the $1,200 Brock Stone bill from back in step 4? If a bill like that was still unpaid and approaching its due date, this is where we'd catch it before it led to a late fee or a damaged supplier relationship. In our case, there's nothing waiting for review and no unpaid bills. The Brockstone bill is now showing as paid because we matched the bank payment to it during the reconciliation. That means the corresponding accounts payable balance has been cleared. So far, so good. But reviewing the books isn't only about finding unfinished work. We also need to step back, sense check the numbers, and investigate anything unusual. For that, let's head to the business feed. QuickBooks has prepared our profit and loss and tells us that it's ready for review. Click View Report and we can see that it's identified 2 accounting insights worth investigating. The first says that sales increased by 24% from May to June. QuickBooks explains that the increase came from higher and more frequent payments from existing customers. That sounds reasonable, so I'm comfortable with that movement. But the second insight is more interesting. QuickBooks says that general business expenses fell by 100% or $8,750 from May to June. It identifies one large payment to Canto Media LLC as the reason. Let's dig a little deeper and find out what it's for. I'll search for Canto Outdoor Media using the Smart Search bar and open the transaction. The payment itself is correct. $8,750 did indeed leave our checking account on May 18th. But it was categorized as a general business expense, which is quite vague. So let's check the supporting document. The attached invoice tells us that this was a booking deposit for a billboard advertising campaign running from July 6th to August 2nd. That changes things. Right now, the full cost is hitting our expenses in May, but the period that the cost relates to appears to fall in July and August. That changes the accounting treatment. At the moment, the full $8,750 is being recorded as an expense in May, even though the campaign relates to July and August. That overstates May's expenses and understates the expenses in the periods that follow. Under accrual accounting, expenses should be recorded as they are incurred, not necessarily when cash is paid out. So the fix is to recode the transaction from general business expenses to prepaid expenses, which is an asset account. Then, as the campaign takes place, the cost can be transferred from prepaid expenses to advertising and marketing. And that's the whole point of reviewing the books. QuickBooks is good at flagging what looks unusual, but it can't always know the correct accounting treatment. That still requires us to review the details and make the final judgment. Step 7. How do you run reports in QuickBooks Online? Everything we've done throughout this video has been building up to this final step. Reports turn all those individual transactions into useful information about how the business is performing and what it owns and owes. To find them, head to Reports, then choose Standard Reports. Here's the full report library with your favorites at the top and everything else grouped by category. We're going to focus on the reports that matter most. First, the profit and loss, also known as the income statement. This report shows the business's revenue, expenses, and profit over a period of time. I'll set the period to June, use the accrual method of accounting, and compare it with the previous period, so we can quickly see what's changed. On the bottom line, net income has increased from $7,284 in May to $11,638 in July. Next, the balance sheet. Remember when I mentioned this back in step 3? Well, here it is. This is a snapshot of what Pallet Town Creative Co. owns and owes as of June 30th. Under assets, we can see our checking account, the $2,400 in accounts receivable still owed to us, and the $8,750 in prepaid expenses. That's the billboard campaign we recoded in step 6. Now it's correctly shown as an asset rather than a one-off expense. Under liabilities, accounts payable is 0 because the Brockstone bill was matched to its payment and cleared. Total assets of $40,194.25, which agrees exactly with total liabilities and equity. So the balance sheet is in balance. QuickBooks also includes more specific reports. The accounts receivable aging summary, for example, shows which customers owe you money and how long those balances have been outstanding. Here, Vermilion Bike Store owes us $2,400 and it's still current, not overdue. Then the statement of cash flows shows how cash actually moved during the month. Not just what we earned on paper, but what was actually received and paid. For June, net income was $11,637.67. But because the $2,400 Vermilion invoice hasn't been paid yet, that amount is deducted to arrive at a net cash increase of $9,237.67. That gives us a closing cash balance of $29,044.25, the exact amount we reconciled to the bank statement back in step 5. And of course, every one of these reports can be printed or exported whenever you need them. And that's our full bookkeeping loop, from setting up a company to producing financial reports. If you've been following along and you're ready to try QuickBooks for yourself, you'll find my affiliate link in the description below. That will take you to the best offer currently available. And if you'd like to keep on learning, I'd recommend watching this video next. See you there.